One mysterious pill changes his life overnight. He masters languages, conquers the stock market, and becomes a millionaire. But he soon discovers a horrifying truth: every person who used the pill is dead, and he's next. Eddie Mora calls himself a sci-fi novelist, but after months he still hasn't written a single word. He tells himself that even if his career is falling apart, at least he still has his girlfriend, Lindy. But he's wrong. Lindy breaks up with him on the spot. She's tired of paying his bills, cleaning up after him, and watching him waste his potential. Desperate, Eddie suddenly proposes marriage, but Lindy reminds him that his first marriage to his college sweetheart, Melissa, already ended badly, and she walks away. On his way home, Eddie runs into his ex-brother-in-law, Vernon. They grab a drink, and Eddie admits he can't even write a single sentence for his novel. Vernon says he knows something that can help and pulls out a small mysterious pill. Vernon claims this pill unlocks 100% of the brain and gives users access to their full mental potential. Before Eddie can ask more, Vernon's phone rings. He says he has to leave and hands Eddie his business card. Eddie says he doesn't want the pill, but Vernon says Eddie should be thankful because that one pill is worth a whopping $800. Eddie remains skeptical. However, before entering his apartment building, he swallows it. On the stairs, Eddie runs into his landlord's young wife, Valerie. She confronts him about his overdue rent, then the pill kicks in. The world suddenly looks different. Eddie notices Valerie's law school textbook and instantly remembers seeing that exact book over 10 years ago in college. That's when he realizes his brain had stored everything he had ever seen and heard. He just couldn't access it. Now he can. Eddie asks Valerie about her studies and offers to help with her law paper. She doesn't believe him, so he starts explaining complicated legal concepts one after another. Soon, her paper is finished, and the two end up having some freaky time together. Eddie returns to his filthy apartment and starts cleaning. Before long, the place becomes completely livable. Then he notices something strange. He hasn't smoked in hours, hasn't eaten anything, and still doesn't feel hungry. He isn't high. He simply feels completely clear. Without hesitation, Eddie starts writing his book. This time, the ideas come faster than he can type. The next morning, Eddie is back to his old self, but the unfinished manuscript is sitting on his desk. He takes it to his publisher, but she barely wants to read it. Eddie begs her to read only 3 pages and promises to return the advance if she doesn't like it. When Eddie gets home, he finds 3 missed calls from his publisher. She's amazed by his writing and tells him to call her back immediately. Eddie grabs the phone, but reality hits him. Without the pill, he can't continue writing. He realizes he needs the mysterious pill and decides to return to Vernon. When Eddie arrives, he immediately notices Vernon has been badly beaten. He asks what happened, but Vernon avoids the question. Instead, he finally reveals the truth about the pill. It's called NZT-48, and it isn't some harmless experimental drug. It's a dangerous drug. But even knowing the risks, Eddie can't walk away. He needs it. Seeing how desperate Eddie has become, Vernon takes advantage of him. He sends Eddie on errands and treats him like a personal assistant. Eddie doesn't complain because getting more NZT is all that matters. After returning from one of those errands, Eddie notices Vernon's apartment door is slightly open. Inside, everything has been destroyed, and Vernon is dead. Eddie immediately calls the police. While waiting for them, he puts on gloves and searches the apartment. He finds NZT pills, a notebook, and some cash. Just then, the police arrive and Eddie frantically hides it all. At the station, a detective questions him and clearly doubts his story. Then, Melissa suddenly calls the detective's desk asking for Eddie. She says they can't meet yet, but promises to contact him when everything is ready. Eddie is eventually released. As soon as he gets home, he takes 1 pill without hesitation. He gets a haircut, buys new clothes with Vernon's money, and finishes his novel in just 4 days. He delivers the completed manuscript to his publisher. From that moment on, Eddie takes 1 NZT pill every day. He learns piano in 3 days. He uses advanced mathematics to dominate poker games. While jogging, he listens to foreign conversations and absorbs entire languages effortlessly. Soon, Eddie enters the world of wealthy and powerful people. He discusses business with Wall Street executives, and one of them offers him a job. But despite his growing reputation, Eddie still isn't financially secure. He realizes he needs to think bigger, so he starts trading stocks. At first, he makes thousands of dollars easily, but he quickly realizes small victories won't make him truly wealthy without serious capital. A person like Eddie can't simply walk into a bank and ask for a huge loan. So he turns to a dangerous loan shark named Gennady. Eddie asks for $100,000. Gennady agrees but gives him a warning. If Eddie doesn't pay him back, he'll skin him alive. Eddie goes to a day trading firm and starts trading big. He even doubles his NZT dosage, pushing his brain beyond its normal limits. Within a week, Eddie turns $100,000 into $2 million. Soon, word spread and Eddie receives a call from one of Wall Street's biggest names, Carl Van Loon. Eddie tells Lindy about the news over dinner. She can barely believe someone as powerful as Carl Van Loon Loon would have any reason to contact him. Then Eddie casually orders their meal in flawless Italian. Lindy is stunned. Eddie apologizes for everything he put her through and asks for another chance. The two begin dating again. As Eddie's success grows, he notices a mysterious man appearing everywhere he goes. Then one night, he experiences a blackout. One moment, Eddie is in Lindy's apartment. The next, he's standing in a hallway drenched in sweat, with no memory of what happened. The next day, Eddie meets Carl Van Loon. He gives the meeting everything he has, but Carl barely reacts. Afterward, Carl offers Eddie a ride home and hands him a folder filled with confidential documents as a test. Eddie quickly uncovers Carl's secret merger plan, but Carl pushes Eddie to explain the next step. Eddie smiles and says he'll reveal the rest if Carl gives him the job. Carl agrees immediately and schedules another meeting. Instead of going home, Eddie decides to take a walk. Then another blackout happens. First, Eddie wakes up in a bar, then he's dancing at a nightclub with a beautiful woman. After that, he's partying with strangers. Eventually, he finds himself in a luxury hotel with a supermodel. At one point, Eddie spots the same mysterious man following him. Later, he gets into a fight in the subway and unexpectedly defeats several men with ease. Somehow, he learned how to fight by watching kung fu movies and boxing matches. When the blackout finally ends, Eddie finds himself standing on a bridge. 18 hours have disappeared, and he remembers nothing. The next morning, Eddie wakes up feeling terrible. For the first time, he's afraid to take another NZT pill. He reviews the documents Carl gave him, but without NZT, he can't understand them. With no choice, Eddie goes to the meeting completely unprepared. Carl immediately starts asking questions, expecting the brilliant analysis Eddie promised. But Eddie isn't listening. His attention is fixed on a news report playing in the background. The supermodel he woke up with during his blackout has been found dead. Eddie panics. What if he killed her? He suddenly leaves the meeting and rushes home. Later, Eddie receives a call from Melissa and they agree to meet. He remembers Vernon's notebook and starts calling every number listed inside, hoping someone can explain what is happening. Instead, he discovers everyone connected to NZT is either dead or seriously ill. Finally, Eddie calls the last number on the list. A phone starts ringing nearby. He turns around and sees the mysterious man who has been following him. Eddie immediately runs. The man chases him through the streets, but Eddie escapes by jumping into a cab. Eventually, Eddie meets Melissa. She reveals she also used NZT, but unlike the others, she stopped before the drug destroyed her completely. That is the only reason she's still alive. Melissa warns Eddie that he can't quit suddenly. He has to slowly reduce his usage or he'll die. But Eddie isn't interested in the warning. He only wants to know who creates NZT. Melissa admits she doesn't know. Then she tells him they can't meet again and walks away. When he returns home, he finds Gennady waiting. The loan shark attacks Eddie and demands repayment. During the struggle, Gennady notices the NZT pill in Eddie's hand. Thinking it's some powerful designer drug, Gennady swallows it. Eddie withdraws the money from the bank and pays Gennady back. Eddie's condition keeps getting worse, so Eddie goes to Lindy's office and finally tells her everything. He admits he needs her help. There are NZT pills hidden in her apartment and he begs her to get them. Lindy finds the pills, but on the way back, she notices a man following her. She calls Eddie in panic. Her taxi gets stuck in traffic. The stranger quickly approaches, opens the door and reaches inside. Lindy escapes into a park and begs two strangers for help. But before they can react, the man kills them both. Lindy hides and calls Eddie. She tells him she's trapped and the man chasing her has murdered two people. Eddie tells her to take one NZT pill. Lindy hesitates but swallows it. Almost instantly, her fear disappears and her mind becomes clear. She leads the attacker into an ice skating rink, uses an ice skate blade to slash his face, and escapes. She eventually returns to Eddie and the two check into a hotel. But the next morning, she tells him she's done. Eddie promises he'll find a way to quit NZT, but Lindy has already seen enough. She leaves. Then Eddie finds Gennady waiting outside the hotel. This time, he wants NZT. He pulls a gun on Eddie and threatens to kill him. From then on, Eddie has to keep handing him one pill after another just to stay alive. Eddie hires two bodyguards and returns to Carl. He apologizes for leaving their previous meeting and Carl gives him another chance. Eddie immediately helps broker the biggest merger in corporate history. He finally learns how to control NZT. As long as he maintains a steady dose, eats properly, and avoids alcohol, the blackouts disappear. He visits a tailor and designs custom suits with hidden pockets for carrying his pills, but his NZT supply is running out. Desperate, Eddie finds a chemist and offers him $2 million to recreate NZT within 6 months. During lunch, a detective reveals a witness has placed Eddie at the hotel during the supermodel's murder. So, Eddie hires top lawyer Morris Brandt to protect him. Later, Eddie attends the final merger meeting with Carl and the opposing company, but the other company's CEO, Hank Atwood, is seriously ill. So both sides postpone the signing. Eddie returns to his hotel room and finds it destroyed. Realizing constantly changing hotels isn't enough, he buys a luxury penthouse with reinforced steel doors and advanced security. Then, Eddie meets Gennady again. The loan shark has figured out how NZT works and demands even more pills. He threatens to expose Eddie's murder case to Carl if he refuses. closes. The next day, Eddie and Carl wait for Hank Atwood to sign the merger documents. Instead, Atwood's wife arrives and says her husband is at the hospital but will sign once he recovers. As they leave, Eddie realizes the man who's been following him is Atwood's henchman. Atwood was using NZT2. His supply must have ran out after Vernon died, so he sent his henchman to steal Eddie's pills. But he failed, and now Atwood is dying. Eddie meets Morris at the police station and is placed in a suspect lineup. Luckily, the witness cannot identify him. Afterward, Morris returns Eddie's jacket and casually asks where he had it made. Eddie ignores the strange question. Back with Carl, Eddie discovers their secret merger talks have been leaked, and Atwood is now in a coma. Eddie realizes he forgot to take his NZT pill. He rushes back, but his entire stash is gone. Then an unexpected package arrives. Inside are the severed hands of his bodyguards. Gennady is coming for him. Eddie returns to his apartment and realizes he has no idea what to do without NZT. Then a news report pops up and Atwood's wife is denying the merger talks. Even worse, Morris Brandt is now representing the Atwood family. Eddie finally understands. Atwood also framed him by having his henchman kill the supermodel. And Morris wasn't asking about Eddie's jacket by accident, he stole his pills for Atwood. Just then, Gennady begins pounding on his door. Trapped and desperate, Eddie considers jumping from the penthouse. Then he remembers he still has one last NZT pill. He searches desperately and finds it, but before he can take it, Gennady and his men break through the door. During the chaos, Eddie loses the pill. Gennady orders his men to search the apartment while he prepares to torture Eddie. Eddie's attackers break into his hidden safe. As the noise fills the apartment, Eddie realizes they won't hear him if he attacks now, so he secretly grabs a knife and waits. When Gennady gets close, Eddie strikes. Gennady is dead, but Eddie is barely alive. He hasn't taken NZT in hours and collapses on the floor. Then he notices Gennady's blood reaching his face. Eddie realizes the drug is still inside Gennady's body. Desperate, he drinks it. He plays dead until Gennady's men approach, then takes them out one by one. Eddie rushes to find Atwood, but he's already dead. He tells Atwood's henchman that Morris kept the NZT pills for himself, which got Atwood killed. So the henchman tortures Morris until he gives up Eddie's stolen NZT. Months later, Eddie's life has reached another level. He's running for Senate. His assistant tells him a representative from his biggest campaign contributor wants to meet him. When Eddie enters the room, he finds Carl Van Loon. Carl reveals he knows about NZT. He even bought the pharmaceutical company developing the formula. Carl offers Eddie unlimited NZT if he agrees to follow his orders, but Eddie refuses. He tells Carl he hasn't taken NZT in a long time. Instead, he created a better formula without the dangerous side effects. He also reminds Carl of his illegal insider trading and questionable overseas deals. Then Eddie predicts a van will crash into a taxi. Seconds later, it happens. Finally, Eddie places his hand on Carl's chest and tells him he has a heart condition. Based on what Eddie can sense, Carl will die within a year. Carl realizes Eddie has become something far beyond what he imagined. He backs down and leaves. But Eddie has somewhere more important to be. He and Lindy have found their way back to each other. As they sit down for lunch, Eddie casually orders their meal in flawless Chinese. Lindy eyes him suspiciously. Is Eddie really free from NZT?